You guys have heard me for a few weeks now talking about how amazing Sonos is, and I'm telling you, I'm someone who's like, I don't think Sonos could be doing a better job with their products. Well, guess what? They just released a new one. The Sonos one makes it even better. It hooks up with the Amazon Alexa. You can now talk to your Sonos, say, turn the volume up, or start playing it in the bedroom. I'm about to walk into the bedroom, so turn it on in the bedroom too. I want to be listening to this song there, and it's great, and I love it. And now for a limited time, Sonos is offering the listeners of Beautiful Anonymous 10% off one order. You want to spend $2,500 or less, you're going to get 10% off any product, Sonos.com. Use the promo code STORIES10, that's capital STORIES 10 at Sonos.com, 10% off. You get the offer going. I'm telling you, you're going to love these speakers. Wanted to tell you about another really great show here at Earwolf. It's Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. Everybody knows Gilbert Gottfried. The guy's an icon. As a comedian, everybody loves Gilbert, right? You know him. There's a lot of mainstream, right? We're talking Aladdin, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Problem Child, Affleck, telling the aristocrats joke. Gilbert's podcast is great. Brings celebrities like Weird Al, Judd Apatow, Ira Glass onto the podcast. Talks about show business legends, old horror movies, folklore, dirty jokes, stories from the road. Also, there's a documentary called Gilbert about his life. It's in select theaters now. You can check out new episodes of Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast every Monday, wherever you listen. Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, earwolf.com. Enjoy it. Hello to all my dung fungies. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Gethard here. Hello, welcome. Another episode of Beautiful Anonymous is upon us, and I feel so very lucky about that. I always say it, I feel very lucky that I stumbled into this idea, and that you guys all support it, and this is such a big part of my life. Thank you 1,000 times, thank you for supporting it. Thanks to everybody who's supporting the Chris Gethard Show on True TV. It really means a lot that you guys support the show. We're coming up on the end of this season, so yeah, last week I spent the whole episode getting beat up by jiu-jitsu guys, and it was really fun, and I'm lucky to live this life that I live, and you guys support that life, and thank you for that. Also, want to put this out here. So many people were so kind about Career Suicide, which was the HBO special I did a few months back. But the album of Career Suicide just came out this week, and I'm very proud of it. And a lot of the Beautiful Anonymous fans, you guys have actually been some of the biggest champions of that special. So I wanted to let you know it's out there. You can get it digitally. If you want to download it, you can find it at dongiovannirecords.com or on iTunes and all those things. And if you want a collector's item, we're selling it on vinyl, purple vinyl, 2 discs, double vinyl, cool art by my friend Diana, who's also done a bunch of the Beautiful Anonymous art over the years. And yeah, just a cool thing to put out there. All right, last week's episode, I talked to a young folk singer. It was part of the Moravian faith. A lot of people were fascinated by the Moravian faith. It was cool in the Facebook group, Beautiful Anonymous, the community. We saw a lot of people. There were many people going, I am Moravian, or people saying, I live among Moravians. And I am shocked to hear any reference to Moravians in anything in the pop culture sphere. Cool. It was very interesting to read a lot of people talking about it from the inside perspective. That was cool. Also, a lot of people from a lot of people telling me that in the singer-songwriter world that playing 3 hours in a winery is not unusual at all. And I find that impressive and shocking. As a performer myself, the idea that I would perform for 3 hours ever, let alone in a winery, that sounds like so much heavy lifting and so difficult. So kudos to you, singer-songwriters, for all your hard work in the wineries across this world. Thank you for that. Okay. This week's episode, I'm excited about it. One of my absolute favorite things in this world is anytime, not just on the podcast, anytime I meet somebody who does something very specific with their life, who's willing to fill me in on it. I always think that's the most fascinating thing in the world. There's all these people, there's all these different things you can do that I'll never get to do. We're going to talk to a scientist. We're going to talk to a lady who's a scientist, but who's also very into her chosen field and very into a wing of science that's very specific. This was one that when we had this call, I immediately, I talked to my wife a few minutes afterwards. I called my wife and I was like, I just had a Beautiful Anonymous call and you're going to love it. Because my wife loves, anytime someone gets really nerdy and specific about some science thing, my wife loves it. And I think a lot of us out there are like that. And I think podcast fans in particular are particularly built to, oh, you want to spend an hour telling me about something ultra specific? Yeah, I'll listen to that. This is a young lady who's very charming and very energetic and very nerdy about fossils and rocks and all sorts of other geeky things. And I loved it. And you will, I bet a lot of you guys are going, well, if it's about science, why is the word splooge in the title? Gethard, keep listening and you'll find out. Enjoy the call.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, is this Chris?
It is.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Well, I have to say, I'm glad there was a lag time so I could chill out a little bit.
Oh, there's no reason. Why would you need to chill? I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot from New Jersey. There's no need to chill.
I'm talking to Chris Gethard. I've been listening to you for a long time now. This is really cool.
Well, that's nice. And thank you for listening. And it means a lot.
Well, how's your day going?
It's good. Today is good. If you ask me how my week or my month is going, I'd say it's full of nothing but stress and fear. But that's okay. I think that's pretty on brand for me, so no one's too surprised by that.
Is your TV show still giving you a little bit of stress?
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And my life is very good. I don't want to sit here moaning about having a TV show, but it's also I'm not necessarily built for pressure. There's a lot of people's jobs on the line. Got to try to get this thing picked up. And the numbers are heading in the wrong direction. Never good. Maybe, who knows, maybe picked up or canceled by the time the world hears this.
Well, I want to watch the show. I really do, but I refuse to pay for cable.
Okay, cord cutter.
I refuse to pay for cable.
What about iTunes? What about iTunes?
I was hoping that...
What about
I do have iTunes.
Yeah, you get it on iTunes or Hulu Plus. In a bunch of ways.
Oh, it's on Hulu Plus? I only have regular Hulu.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God.
So I have to admit, I'm super jealous of you because you live in my favorite place on earth.
Queens?
New York City.
Oh, New York in general. Yeah.
Well, not specifically Queens, maybe, but I spent 8 weeks in New York, and it was a very fun time in my life.
Oh, when was that? What year?
2015.
2015, 8 weeks in New York. What brought you to New York for 8 weeks?
Well, I was an undergraduate majoring in geology.
Geology? The study of rocks?
Yeah. I actually did graduate, so I guess that's technically my title as of now. I'm a geologist.
I'm talking to a bona fide geologist.
Yeah.
Wow. Never met a geologist.
We're more common than you think. You just need to go to the pub.
The pub? Where are these geologist pubs that I've been missing out on?
Well, the stereotype is that we drink a lot of beer. I mean, I went to the annual meeting.
I missed the gag.
Last year. It's called, right. So GSA every year, it's the Geological Society of America. Last year it was in Denver. And it was sponsored by a brewery.
So geologists
idea.
Geologists like to get together and just get hammered?
Yeah, that's half the job. I mean, we really just get paid to drink beer and hike.
What? What are you talking about? Aren't you supposed to be working hard to study the shifting tectonic plates of the Earth and predicting our ecological future?
Yeah, I'm teasing, but that's our stereotype. We're always drinking beer. But no, I had taken a paleontology class that had really sparked my interest, so I applied to be a paleontology intern at the American Museum of Natural History there in Manhattan.
Oh.
And they actually hired me, which was awesome. So I got to go and hang out there for 8 weeks.
That's awesome. That's a great museum.
Yeah. It was a blast, and I absolutely fell in love with the city. I would go and work there and live there for forever if they would have me.
Is there a big geology scene in New York?
Well, you got AM&H, and that's where Neil deGrasse Tyson is. Which I have a really funny story about Neil deGrasse Tyson if you want to hear that.
I do want to hear it, and I love the name drop.
Yeah, well, he runs the Hayden Planetarium there, and every summer, because they hire a bunch of interns every summer, all of their different departments. So he will throw a party in his office space in Hayden Planetarium. And I was sitting in my office one day working away, and somebody just knocked on the door, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to go to Neil deGrasse Tyson's party tonight?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Wow.
Absolutely, I want to go party with Neil deGrasse Tyson. So we got off work, and I worked with 5 other kids, some graduate students, some undergraduate students, but we all went, and we had to go through. One of the cool things about the museum is there are a bunch of hidden hallways and all of the collection spaces behind the scenes. And it started out as one building, and they've built all of these different buildings onto it over the year. I think it's up to 28 different buildings. It's massive. But in constructing this massive museum, all of these strange pathways ended up being built. So we had to go behind the scenes, go this really odd way to the planetarium. We rode this secret staff elevator only up, and the doors opened, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was sitting there just talking, and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And we were super excited, but I got to talk to him one-on-one, and he told me a really hilarious story about how he was the keynote speaker for the, what's it called? It's like a giant science fair in Washington, D.C., and all of these really smart kids come and compete. And Congress, all the members of the House and the Senate come, and they interact with these kids. And it's a really prestigious big deal. And he was the keynote speaker this year, and he said that one of the kids that placed really high, he was going to give a speech to all the parents and all the members of Congress, and he had on a tie that said Harvard on it. And he said that at the end of his keynote speech, he called this kid up. Keep in mind, they're talking in front of, all of Congress, all of these kids' parents. And he goes, "Son, I want you to tell me why you have on a tie that says Harvard." And the kid goes, "Well, I hope to attend Harvard when I'm finished with high school." And he said, I really don't think that's why you have on a tie that says Harvard. I think you have on a tie that says Harvard because you're wanting to ride on the coattails of people who have already attended and achieved great things. And then he took the tie off the kid in front of all of Congress and all of these parents, and he said, "I still have the tie at my house."
That just sounds like Neil deGrasse Tyson being mean to a child.
It was, maybe I made it sound like he was being, he did kind of rip this kid's ass in front of all of Congress. Sorry, Sally. But,
Why is he ripping ass? Why is he ripping this kid's ass in front of Congress? In front of Kristen
he really
Gillibrand.
isn't a mean guy, though.
Chuck Schumer.
He wasn't a mean guy. He was very nice.
No,
he
I'm
was
sure.
very nice. And he autographed a wine bottle for me. So
No,
it sits on top of my fridge.
I'm sure when he said it, it was meant to be achieve your own things. Don't fall into the reputation of some institution when you should be focusing on making your own mark in this world. I'm sure that was the message.
That is precisely the message that I missed, because the conversation that story fell into was a conversation that we were having about the fact that you can obtain an excellent education at a small university, and you don't necessarily have to attend an Ivy League in order to achieve greatness.
Boom. There you go. Tyson. I got a pal who runs the sleepover program at that museum, Natural History Museum. My friend runs that they have sleepovers, night at the museum type stuff.
Yeah, I really wanted to do that while I was there, but they didn't have one.
My pal Pierce
It sounds like a
runs the
blast.
program, or did at least a while ago. I think still does. Who knew that Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of a bully? Who knew?
Super, super nice guy, though. He probably would not remember me at all if you were to see me again, because that was 2 years ago, and I'm just some kid. But
now, what do you do when you say you're a geologist? What do you do now? This is one of these degrees that I know is an important thing, but what does one actually do with a geology degree?
Well, I graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Geology, and while I was at my undergraduate institution, I studied under someone who does, it's called palynology. And the principle of that subfield of geology is studying fossilized pollen and other microfossils. And what we did in her lab was we would go out and sample different rocks and process the material, and then we study these fossilized pollen and spores, and we can actually reconstruct past environmental changes in regional areas.
You got to slow down. The adrenaline rush I'm getting from this is, I can't handle it.
I'm trying to be very careful, because one of the things that really peeves me when people talk about science is using a bunch of jargon and these wild terms that nobody knows what they're talking about. And science communication is something I'm very passionate about. So I'm going to try to keep it simple and not do that thing that I hate.
That's nice, yeah. And I was just ribbing you. I think this will probably be my father's favorite episode. My father has a PhD in environmental science.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. Is he a professor?
He's not. It was funny. My dad, when he was working his whole life, he worked in pharmaceuticals. He's never stopped going to school. He's a big nerd. He loves school. So he got like an MBA. He eventually got a doctorate from NJIT. And just has a doctorate now. He talks sometimes about maybe becoming a professor, but he's retired. I think he's really enjoying the retired life. But he has the doctorate. Guy loves water. Talk to you about water treatment all day long. I'll ask him about water treatment. He'll be like, you don't really want to hear about this. And then I'll talk about it for 40 minutes. I love it so much.
That's awesome. No, I originally thought that I wanted to major in environmental science going into my undergrad. Mm-hmm. But I had a geologist talk me out of it and pull me into the dark side. The dark side.
So you work with a professor. I didn't know pollen. You find fossilized pollen?
Yeah. So
how do they
it
even
only
figure that out?
is preserved.
It's preserved.
Somebody with a microscope someday. No, it's only in soft rocks, sedimentary rocks. Once you go into the rocks that have been metamorphosed or igneous rocks, you don't get pollen there because it's been cooked out by that point. But
yeah.
And soft sedimentary rocks, we can get it out.
Sure. And sedimentary rocks, if I remember my basic grade school introduction to this, those are rocks that become kind of like layered and pressurized, and that's how they become rocks, right? Is it's other things kind of smashed together through pressure over time? Am I right on that in the basic level?
You're thinking about metamorphic rock.
That's metamorphic rock. Okay, so then igneous comes straight out the volcano. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I nailed that. Nailed that shit.
Yeah.
So what's sedimentary? So I was thinking of metamorphosized. Okay, so what's sedimentary again?
Sedimentary rocks are things that are deposited like on the ocean floor or in river deltas. Maybe, how can I explain this? You've got sediment coming down off of a mountain from erosion. You know, the mountain's constantly getting beaten down by the sun and wind and rain, so tiny bits of rock flow down off the mountain, and they're deposited in some lake or some valley, some basin.
I really appreciate your effort.
That's how you get a sedimentary rock.
I love it. I love that you're explaining it in layman's terms, and I also love that you're like hearing me now, hearing the slight Jersey accent. You've listened to me for a year or so, and I really do appreciate that you're like, I've come to know Chris over time. Reasonably smart guy. Also can feel him being dumb. Can feel him being dumb right now. At what level do I need this to land so he gets it? And I appreciate that.
Well, no, something that drives me nuts, like my number one pet peeve about being a scientist, because I'm a graduate student now. I go to a different school. I'm working on a master's degree.
In palynology? Palynology?
Yes, that's part of it. I'm actually in a paleolimnology lab now. And what we do is we go and we take all of our fancy tools and equipment and we go to really remote lake systems or wetlands, like in the East African Rift Valley or Pantanal or the High Eastern Sierra, and we take sediment cores from lake bottoms.
Yeah.
So we instead of just going out and studying a rock face, we actually study the sediments that have been left at the bottom of the lake. So what I'm planning to do with that for my master's degree is I'm going to get a sediment core from a lake and the High Eastern Sierra, and I'm going to do a pollen analysis through the last 20,000 years or so and pair that with a geochemical analysis and observe environmental change in the High Eastern Sierra through time, which is important because High Eastern Sierra snowpack is like the water source for California.
And you're doing that.
And, you know.
What's the timeline on
go
that?
Ahead.
Yeah. When are you doing this? When are you extracting this core?
In May.
In May.
Of next year.
Well, Thor Ragnarok's coming out soon, so we all got stuff we're excited about. I got things I'm doing that I'm excited about too.
Yeah, but I'm excited about that project because I'll be able to observe environmental change in the High Eastern Sierra for the last 20,000 years, pair that with geochemistry. And then what we aim to do with this data is there are really, really smart people who make climate models that predict ecological response to basically human input.
Oh, wow.
Like
so this
increased
is topical.
levels of CO2. Right. So like increased levels of CO2, all of the things that humans have done since our short time on Earth.
Wow.
And they pair what we call paleoclimatic data, and they use it to predict how things might change given the current trends of human environmental impact.
So you basically take a big chunk of rock out of a lake bed. You look at it and you're able to analyze 20,000 years and the rates at which things happen, things that happen naturally that came and went over time. And then you can look at it and you can go, and then humans invented aerosol cans and then things went nuts. You can see that. So you look at the past and sort of chart how things went over long spans of time. And that helps provide a baseline of information for the people studying how out of control things are getting now.
Right.
Damn. How screwed are we? Are we really screwed? Well, I think that's the question we all want to ask, right? A nice casual, how much is the Earth dying? Something to think about. But you know, before the Earth dies, you're living a life. Your life probably needs products, it probably needs services. And luckily we got advertisers bringing those things to you. That's a segue right there, baby. Anyway, enjoy these words from our advertisers. They help us bring you the show for free. We'll be back after this with more phone call. Recently, I have had the opportunity to use HelloFresh, and I do not know why I waited for so long. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service. It shops, plans, delivers your favorite step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy. With HelloFresh, all the ingredients are delivered right to your door in recyclable, insulated packaging. They come pre-measured and handy labeled meal kits so you know which ingredients go with which recipe. This is a very good thing. It's a very organized system where you're not sorting out all sorts of stuff on your own. Really loved that aspect of it. And HelloFresh offers a wide variety of chef-curated recipes that change weekly. We're talking about the classic plan, wide variety of meat, fish, seasonal produce. The veggie plan, which I use, vegetarian recipes with plant-based proteins. Family plan, quick, easy meals for the whole family. Family's going to love them. And better yet, you can choose a delivery day that works best for your busy schedule. You can pause your account for weeks at a time. Very, very simple. You know what I like? HelloFresh makes it very easy to cook delicious, balanced dinners, and it's for less than $10 a meal. That's no joke. I run around a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, you got these busy lives. You don't always know exactly when you're going to be home. HelloFresh makes it very easy to cook at home, and it's not time consuming. My wife and I, we actually cooked them with friends. We had friends, we all met up, and we said, let's just all get together and cook at home. And we actually made a night out of it. We cooked 2 or 3 HelloFreshes. We ate them, and it was like a good social experience. It was a really genuinely good time. For $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com. Enter the promo code STORIES30. That's STORIES30 at HelloFresh.com. You get $30 off. You're going to love it. Support for today's show and the following message comes from Audible. Get an exclusive collection of listens from renowned relationship expert Esther Perel, free with a trial Audible membership. This collection includes her new audiobook, The State of Affairs, which will have you rethinking infidelity. Plus, seasons 1 and 2 of her groundbreaking series, Where Should We Begin?, which Vogue calls provocative, intriguing, and insightful all at once. It's all up there. You want to start your free trial? Visit audible.com/Esther. That's ESTHER. That's audible.com/Esther. Start your free trial of Audible. Get access to this exclusive collection. Thanks so much again to the sponsors who help make this show happen. If you hear anything that might help your life out, please do use the promo code to help the show. In the meantime, let's get back to this phone call. How screwed are we? Are we really screwed?
Okay, I have, as far as I don't like to call it global warming because I think that is a misleading term because the Earth isn't just warming. We're seeing lots of different extremes that we've never seen before and climate changing in other ways than just getting hotter. So I strictly call it climate change, but it's a different opinion that I carry. See, the Earth will be fine without us. It's gone through 6 mass extinction. Well, 5. We're in the 6th mass extinction in geological history. I mean, the Earth has seen some shit. Sorry, Sally.
Yeah. No, sorry, Aunt Karen, too.
Back.
My aunt, if I can interrupt for a second, my Aunt Karen recently told me she was listening to the show on a speaker on her deck, and I was being very potty-mouthed, and her neighbor heard it. And I want to say not just sorry to Sally, but sorry to Aunt Karen as well. Anyway, so
sorry, Aunt Karen.
So this is a terrifying. I said, "How screwed are we?" You gave a terrifying answer. Your answer was, "The Earth will be fine," but it sounds like you are saying that we might be leading to our own extinction as a species.
Right. So I mean, that's essentially what's going to happen.
Wow, you're awfully cash about it.
I mean, well, when you have to think daily basis, my line of work, I think on multi-billion year scales. You kind of get casual about it.
Right.
But what frustrates me the most is people who don't necessarily agree with conservation efforts and doing our best to reduce CO2 emissions and doing what we can to preserve our natural resources, blah, 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 the left-wing tree hugger stuff that we should all try to participate in. But people who don't agree with that stuff and they cheer for things like Trump rolling back environmental regulations, they cheer for stuff like that. So what frustrates me is that they don't understand that efforts to preserve our environment are completely self-serving. It's not because we want to go out and we want to hug trees and protect the fishies and swim in the creek. It's because if we don't do something, if we don't change the way that we operate, if we don't reduce our emissions, if we don't take a better care of our planet, we are going to die. It's not the planet. The planet will be fine. It's us.
Do they have any guesstimates on when we're wiping ourselves out? How many, because you said you look at the billions of years scale, but this thing's hitting a fever pitch. You know, it's tough to, because I do remember, like, people, you know, I always feel like there's a thing that is talked about a little bit, but we don't talk about enough, which is like when it comes to like weather and when it comes to stuff like that, I feel like that's one of the things that the news gets alarmist about and ratings on. Because I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, it was acid rain. The rain's going to burn our skin when it falls. It's acid rain. And maybe sometimes people are so used to like, oh yeah, they always shove this stuff down our throat. Maybe that's where some of this denial comes from. But this is clearly true. You got a sense of how much time we got left? We got 100 years before we really blow it? Got 500 years? When do we blow this one?
If you look at the models that are predicting, see, one of the big problems, and it's not just the Earth getting warmer that is an issue, right? There are other things that are an issue, like the acidity in the ocean getting out of control. Because it's a huge sink for CO2. The more CO2 we release into the atmosphere, the more CO2 is absorbed into the ocean. The pH rises. I won't go into ocean chemistry, but anyway.
Oh, Ken Gethard is flipping out. You just said pH of the ocean. You know, my father has a patent. On a desalination device.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
One of the big issues with it he's told me about, though, is you can remove salt from salt water, but then where do you put the salt? What do you do with it? And I think this is the type of thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Who knows? So the acidic levels of the ocean are getting messed up on top of the warmer stuff. What else?
Right.
What else? What are the other things that we're not always talking about?
Well, where I was going with the ocean pH issue, I mean, the models are saying that by the year 2100, the oceans are going to be so acidic that a lot of the critters that live in the ocean that build calcite and aragonite shells aren't going to be able to live.
And then the things that eat them can't live. And then the things that drag them out of the water and eat those things can't live. And those are the things we eat, so we can't live.
Yeah, you're looking at a complex issue there. If the models are correct, by 2100, which I mean, very smart people who are very good at math do those models. So, you know, my money's on them.
Yeah. And when you say we're in the middle of the sixth extinction, I have heard this before. What exactly, is that just the rate at which species are dying out qualifies it as a mass extinction?
Right.
Wow. Simple. That's just a simple yes.
And we've recently entered, because all of geologic time, each era, period, system, whatever, has its own name, but we've recently entered what geologists are now referring to as the Anthropocene, which means the era of humans.
We're just entering the era of humans now. So that means we've kind of just established our foothold where we're truly dominant on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, before that we were in the Holocene. Now we've transitioned and I mean, I'm sure that if you talk to some geologists, they would probably push the start of the Anthropocene a couple thousand years back. But I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, you know, that's really when we've kind of started to screw things up. I mean, all of this has happened so quickly. One of my favorite analogies is the toilet paper roll analogy when talking about geologic time, because the Earth has been in existence for 4.56 billion years. And if you were to roll out, I think it's 2.5 rolls of toilet paper, the human population would take up a centimeter of the last sheet.
Yeah. I was in L.A.
So it's happening really quickly.
I was in L.A. I went to the tar pits, and they had a big chart on a wall that showed exactly what you're talking about. The drop in the water that is humanity.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is getting depressing.
Well, it is, but that's life, right? A constant slog to find happiness before we punch too many holes in the atmosphere. And then we all got to beg Elon Musk for a seat on the Mars or flight. And I beg him. And then we just leave this to the robots we build so they can tell our story.
Well, Elon Musk, I'm sorry, I don't think he's ever going to make it to Mars.
Who knows? I mean, he's trying to get people to sign up to die on Mars, right? You're not coming back.
Oh, God bless his heart.
You do. You're a fan. You're a fan of what he's going for.
I mean, I am a fan. I think he's a very smart guy, and what he's doing is admirable. But I don't think that he's ever going to make it to Mars. And I'll tell you why. Because Neil deGrasse Tyson, oddly enough, I was listening to him on a Katie Couric podcast, Katie Couric Show, or whatever it's called, and they were talking about Elon Musk, and he made a really good point when he says, Elon goes into a meeting, asks for billions of dollars to put people on Mars, and the investors are like, well, why do you want to do this? It's like, just to see if we can, and nobody's going to provide that amount of money for just to see if we can.
Okay.
But on the other hand, NASA is a governmental organization. We have it would be more of a benefit for the federal government to find out whether or not people can be on Mars, right?
Sure. We're going to colonize it. You're saying the government should figure out if this is doable.
Well, I think that they would be more likely to get the money to do it.
Yeah.
Before Elon would.
You've now you besmirched the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson. You've slammed Elon Musk. You love rocks and you hate space. That's what I'm learning. You love rocks. You hate space.
Space is good. We need scientists in all areas of life. Space is good. I'll just stick to the Earth.
Here's a question. Are there any scientists that you respect who aren't being paid off by corporate interests who disagree with any of the climate stuff?
Not that I am aware of.
Wow. A universal across the board. Anybody who's not taking money to say otherwise is saying, we got to stop.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's been my experience. I've been to multiple international meetings. I've met with some of the brightest people in earth science. And I mean, that is the consensus. We've got to do something.
Now, when you say we've got to do something, I don't know if this is your area of expertise. You seem like you like getting into the lab, looking at the rocks. Are there simple things we can do? Like, there's things we don't realize. Like, here's one thing I learned a few years ago that I was pretty shocked by is like bottled water. Huge, huge negative impact on the environment. Bottled water. Most of us drink it every day. Because what we don't think about, it's not just the plastic production. It's that you have a faucet at home. You could drink from that. You like the bottled water. Well, not only does that create plastic, you also have to transport that. So now we're using up tons of fossil fuels to get that stuff into crates and on ships. And all those emissions from that gas are totally unnecessary when you think about it. You just drink tap water. That's like a thing I'd never think about, which was explained to me. And I said, I get it now.
Yeah, I mean, little life changes like that. I mean, eating, not even cutting out meat, but eating less meat, because so many greenhouse gases are created and emitted by industrial animal farming. They're just driving an economy-sized car. There are so many small life changes that each of us could make in order to help and to make a difference.
So that thing about the cows is true. Because the layman's terms I've heard is that basically people say these big cattle farms, if you look at the ozone layer above them, they're thinner because cows fart all the time and it creates clouds of methane gas. That's the uneducated version I've heard. How true is this cows farting problem?
It's true. It's 100% true.
That's it? Cow farts? Cow farts are as big an issue as I've heard?
I mean, yes, they are. They're a huge issue. There's actually a good documentary on Netflix called Cowspiracy.
Really? And it's good. It has a name like Cowspiracy, and you're saying as a scientist, you give it a thumbs up. That's an unfortunate name they picked, huh?
Yeah. It's catchy. It'll get people to watch.
Cowspiracy, worth watching.
Yes, I do recommend Cowspiracy.
Okay. Now, I also heard, is it true that they've recently found there's a certain type of seaweed that stops cows from farting?
I'm not sure about that.
I just read about that on Reddit.
I'm not a cow fart expert.
Read about that on Reddit, a website that you can always reliably trust as fact. Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit is a slippery slope.
Oh, you're telling me everybody's got a goddamn opinion. Everybody on Facebook and Reddit and Twitter got a goddamn opinion. Wants to tell you how bad your TV show is. But that's another story for another day. It's another story for another day.
Don't let them tell you that your TV show is bad. I guarantee you it's not bad.
Well, you haven't even seen it.
I haven't even seen it.
A cord cutter. Bookish cord
You
cutter.
mean, didn't you had Method Man on not too long ago, didn't you?
Did have Method Man on. He was the
It can't be
best.
a bad show if you've got Method Man coming on the show.
He was the coolest. He got high with about 15 of my writers. It was awesome. I wasn't there. It was awesome. Now, how does the fact that you've trained your brain to think in terms of not thousands, not millions, but billions of years, does that affect your personal life at all? Do you see things a little differently than the rest of us?
I mean, no. I go to school/work, and I'm a scientist, but then I come home and I'm a just regular person. I mean, I guess I do think about that stuff more often than most people, but I mean, I'm a pretty normal cat.
Normal cat. So you don't sit around thinking about, if I reproduce someday, it's X amount of generations before the ocean is pure acid and everything's screwed? You don't sit and think in terms of that?
I won't lie, I have had that exact thought.
Nailed
but I don't dwell on it.
Gethard strikes again. Gethard strikes again. Wow. So you do. You've had that thought and you just kind of have to shut off your brain and remember, I also have to live for the now with what we've got, or else I'll go insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I try to leave the climate science at school and work.
Yeah.
And come home and be a normal person.
Yeah. Here's another question. What's the coolest thing you ever found in a rock?
I got really obsessed when I was an undergrad with finding this dung fungi in my samples called Sporormiella.
Dung fungi.
And the reason I got fungi that grows on poop. Now, there's a reason that I was super intrigued by this fungi. And it's because when you find it in a palynological sample, it is indicative that there were large herbivores in the area during the time of deposition.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use these dung fungi abundances in your pollen samples to kind of tease out what kind or how many large animals were roaming in that area, like mammoths or whatever. And I just thought that was so cool.
And then,
I was hooked on. I did a term paper on it and everything.
Wow. And then do you coordinate with your peers who are in paleontology and say, hey, you're going to want to focus in on this area to look for fossils of mammoths and mastodons and those big horses they used to have that were 80 feet tall? Do you tell them to focus in there? Is there communication? Or do they know? They
not
know.
Really, no.
Now, how would you feel if I told you this is by far the nerdiest episode of Beautiful Anonymous that's ever happened?
I self-identify as a nerd, so that's okay.
Oh, I'm going to say something a little harsh. You better self-identify as a nerd, because if you didn't, the world would identify you for you. As soon as you said the phrase dung fungi, you don't have a choice in this. I'm glad you're self-aware. But yeah, once we said, I was on the fence. I was like, is this the nerdiest conversation I've ever had? And then I heard the phrase dung fungi, and I said, yes, it is. And I own over 10,000 comic books. I've had some nerdy conversations. I used to have the Star Wars encyclopedia memorized in high school. I've had some big-time nerdy conversations. This takes the cake. Dung fungi.
Yeah, I mean, if my boyfriend pulls up and comes home, I can put him on the line, and he can talk about Godzilla if you want to get really nerdy.
Now, what's he do?
He's also a geologist.
He is, but he loves Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Get that. So when he finds evidence,
He does.
When he finds evidence of dinosaurs, does he just freak out?
No, he's not really into paleontology. He's not sure what he wants to specialize in yet. He's still doing his undergraduate degree.
Yeah, This is awesome. You live in a whole different world than I do. The things you have to think about.
You might find the story and behind how I actually met this guy pretty intriguing.
Okay.
If you want to hear that. I'm sure I'll be judged incredibly hard for this, but...
Oh, this sounds like it has potential. Interesting story about meeting one's significant other. Always goes well. We'll hear that story and so much more when we come back. In the meantime, we got our sponsors. Help us bring you the show for free. Listen to what they have to say. Use the promo codes if you like them. We'll be right back. Imagine if John Lennon could give you life advice. Well, he can. In Questions for Lennon, the Stitcher Premium series is back for season 4. If you have not heard previous seasons of the show, John Lennon's played by Mike Hanford. Really hilarious. I did an episode of Comedy Bang Bang once. Earwolf fans might remember I was in there with John Lennon, played by Mike Hanford, and it was bizarre and hilarious. And on this podcast, he answers questions sent in by listeners. Guess what? Scott stops by this season. So does Betsy Sidardo, Paul Rust, Aaron Whitehead, Darcy Carden, my old pal Darcy, Paul F. Tompkins. A lot of the Earwolf people that everyone knows and loves are going to be there. Check it out. Listen to Questions for Lennon on Stitcher Premium for a free month. You go to stitcherpremium.com/Lennon. Use the promo code STORIES. Thanks again to all of our advertisers. Now let's finish off the phone call.
The story and behind how I actually met this guy pretty intriguing.
Okay.
If you want to hear that. I'm sure I'll be judged incredibly hard for this, but we were doing our undergraduate degree together, and I had been in the program for a couple of years. We met when I was a junior, and he came into the program as a transfer student. And I was actually dating and living with another guy.
Ooh.
At the time.
Another scientist?
But no, he was into social work.
I was hoping you were going to say MMA fighter.
No, definitely not. But I met this guy, and he came into the and I was just immediately taken with him. It was the first time I had ever experienced anything like. As soon as I laid my eyes on him, I was like, "Wow, he's something special."
So more lust than anything. There was a lust there.
Oh, it was 100% lust when it first started.
Wow.
And I kind of pushed it down. I was like, you know what? You're in a relationship with somebody else. You can't have feelings for another person of this nature. You got to shut it down. This is not okay. But we became friends, and I just I fell in love with him.
You did?
I fell head over heels in love with him, and I couldn't deny that anymore. So
you had to have a tough conversation.
Well, I'll tell you how this conversation went. We had a date to it wasn't necessarily a date. I think if we were to look back on it now, it was a date, but we were going to study together for a final, and he came over to my ex's and mine apartment. And my ex was currently away being a camp counselor for a program that mentored children who had experienced significant loss.
So this is a good guy.
Yeah, he was a pretty good guy.
This guy trying to do some good in this world.
Yeah, so he's essentially away at camp for kids with, a dead parent or two, trying to mentor them and bring brightness into their life. And my current boyfriend came over that night, and it was so obvious. This was the point that I realized I couldn't not pursue it because I felt so strongly about him. And he left that evening. Nothing happened at all. There was no dirty business.
Okay.
I did not do anything.
That's good. I was getting nervous.
I did not do anything.
Getting nervous.
I did not do anything before I broke up with this other guy.
Well, that's good. Because as soon as he said he was at a camp for traumatized children, I think All of us listening held our breath and said, oh, please no. Oh, please no. So I'm glad you did it the right way.
No.
The difficult way, but the right way.
Yeah, he came home that Sunday, and I came in because I had been away studying for a chemistry exam. And I said, I don't think that we should be together anymore. And this came really out of left field. I still feel bad about it because, like, I totally blindsided this guy. He had no idea that our relationship was in, like, any sort of trouble at all. And that was a really, really hard thing to do.
Yeah. But it was all in the name of love. It sounds like this love you have now is very real.
Yeah, he's pretty great. I'm a lot happier, and I think that this other guy is probably a lot happier because looking back, we weren't really all that compatible.
Yeah. Now, what would you say was a more exciting discovery in your life, the true love or the dung fungi?
Definitely the true love.
Really?
I am a hopeless romantic. Oh,
really?
yeah.
I thought you were going to say dung fungi. You're going to say a little mushroom growing in some dung. 10,000 years ago.
No, it's the guy.
That's nice. It's very nice. Now it's pronounced fungi, huh? I always heard fungi.
Either way, potato, potato.
Fungi, fungi, potato, potato. Let's call the whole thing off.
Oh, gosh. Man, what else could we talk about other than apocalyptic climate science?
I mean, that's a pretty big one. We got about 17 minutes left. It's up to you what you want to do with them. You heard about your blossoming love, apocalyptic climate science. Got to fix these oceans.
I have to say,
yeah,
I've always wanted. I told myself that if I were to ever actually get through to you, I would really say thank you and praise how open you are about mental health.
Well, thanks. I do my best.
And actually going out and getting help when you need it is it's a really good thing. And I am currently in therapy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And it's been a great thing. And now that I've actually taken the leap and done it myself, I've been in it since probably, I think it was August.
Oh, that's awesome.
July, August that I started. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
I always told myself that I would... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would imagine, I would think a lot of people in your line of work probably get into therapy because they're seeing glimpses of a future that's like dystopian and terrifying.
You would think that would be why I started to go to therapy, but no, I actually have really terrible body dysmorphia.
That sucks.
That I've been diagnosed with, and borderline eating disorder sort of habits, and that's what I've started going for. And that is a tough battle.
And let me, because I don't know, I know the phrase, I know people who have mentioned they have it. For anybody who's not familiar, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not 100% on this. Body dysmorphia is the idea that when you look in the mirror, you are perceiving your own body as different than people who encounter you would. You would describe yourself differently than other people would. Is that the
Precisely,
Is that the basics? Yeah. So you might look in the mirror and say, that you're too skinny or too heavy, whereas anybody else would say, no, you're right on target. What are you talking about? But you really, truly believe that there's something that's extreme about you that's not there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you deal with that. That's rough stuff. That's not good.
Yeah, I actually was kind of down spiraling today with that. I couldn't get it out of my brain, and I was texting my boyfriend, complaining about it, saying, this is so frustrating. I'm so happy I have therapy on Friday, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah,
I'm constantly stuck in a limbo where I have this idea that I am fine just the way that I am, and I don't need to change anything about myself. I need to love myself for exactly who I am and what I look like in this moment. And then there is this other half of me that is like, you need to be thinner.
Yeah.
You need to look a certain way.
I have days where I look in the mirror and I go, I turned out to be a pretty all right looking guy. And then there's other days where I look in it and I go, I'm a big-headed monster. I recently said that to my wife. She put a picture of me on Instagram. I said, I'm a big-headed monster in that. And she said, don't you say that about my husband. She said, don't you ever say that about my husband.
Isn't it incredible how we can say such negative things about ourselves, but if somebody were to ask us to say those same things to someone else, we wouldn't even dream about it?
Oh, never. I mean, to be fair, I'm also in a line of work where people will sometimes tell me online that I am, in fact, a big-headed monster, so that doesn't help these feelings, but I am also prone to them on a personal level as well.
Okay, well, people who aren't so bored and, have such dissatisfying lives that they feel the need to get online and attack strangers.
Yes, negative.
Level-headed people.
Yes, you have to try to avoid the negative cesspool people who live lives of torment and pain where they can only find any sense of control or alpha status on the internet. You have to try to cut those people out. Because I also know if you met 90% of those people, you met them in real life, they wouldn't say a word to you. And if they did, you'd pop them in the mouth, and you'd know for a fact it would be the first time they ever took a shot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you got to ignore those people.
I'm sorry that you deal with that. I'm glad you're getting help. That's very nice. It's funny.
Yeah.
You thanked me for being open, and I got to say, I'm very happy that certain things I've done, the HBO special in particular, have hit people that way. It's funny, since that special, I've actually been a lot less open about it. It's an interesting thing about that. It's been a little
You mean you've been less open about it personally?
Well, I feel like I put everything out there personally, but what happened, which I guess was a little bit anticipated, but sort of theoretical, as you know as a scientist, things are theoretical and you can kind of make assumptions and guesses, but once it becomes real, you don't quite know how it's going to go. I knew theoretically that it was going to open up floodgates of people telling me their own stories, but I had no idea. And it means so much to me, and people reach out all the time. And it really, it is, the fact that people have expressed that maybe I did something that allowed them to have some conversations that I never felt like I was able to have when I was young. It's beautiful, and I'm so proud of it, but I've had to kind of turn off. I've kind of had to avoid those conversations. I get a lot of Facebook messages where I will see in the first line or so that it's about people discussing this stuff, and I don't even open the messages because they can see that I open them, and I don't want to open them and have people see that I opened them and didn't answer them. But I know it causes me too much pain to constantly realize how much hurt there is in the world surrounding this stuff. So I feel like I kind of turned on a faucet in a way, and it's not my right to turn it off, but I also have to protect myself a little bit. So I've actually kind of crawled into a hole when it comes to the mental health conversations. Just a lot of people hurting.
Yeah, that's rough. That's why it's so much more common than people think.
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. I've seen it up close, and it's people from all walks of life. You have no idea. It's scary stuff.
Yeah, and it's sad that there's such a stigma around going and getting help.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. I don't like it. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I fought it for a long time. I won't lie. I didn't want to do it.
Which is so funny.
I didn't want to do it.
Because as a scientist, you know better than anybody that there's a method. And there's a method towards progress. There's a method towards figuring things out, nailing things down, what's really going on. And I think especially cognitive behavioral therapy is built to kind of embrace that. And even you as a scientist who understands the idea of like you put in work, there's science to things, there's methods to things. Even you resisted it, huh?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a scientist, but I'm also very human.
Yeah.
And it's scary. And what really frightened me was I didn't want some person that I didn't know, like, going in with a ninja sword and dissecting my inner psyche.
Of course.
Telling me, why I felt this way and what experiences caused me to feel this way about myself. And, and I also had kind of the irrational fear that I would like uncover some suppressed memories that I had completely, just pushed down because something traumatic happened to me. Even though I had a pretty good idea that nothing like that ever did happen, that was a really irrational fear that I had about therapy.
Yeah, that you'll churn stuff up that does more harm than good. If only you could...
But I have to say that...
If only you could extract your psyche as easily as you can extract a billion-year-old rock core from a lake bed, you'd have it all figured out. Find the dung fungi of your mind and your heart.
I have a feeling that this episode is going to be titled Dung Fungi.
It might be. Although I'll tell you something out there, dear listeners. We have found that the downloads really spike if the word sex is in the title. It's really remarkable. If we put like the word sex or swingers in the title, we get like 10,000 more downloads. It's nuts. Dung fungi. Maybe if you could just say one thing, if one phrase involving the word sex completely out of context, we'll name it that. Everybody will listen for 52 minutes, be like, what the hell was this called dildo parade for? And then this part will come up and they'll say, oh, it was a cheap download grab.
Well, I guess because I study fossilized pollen and spores, I basically study fossilized plant splooge. You could call it plant splooge.
We will call it plant splooge. Can we note that? Jared and Harry. Oh, I see Jared's got a pen out. Fossilized plant splooge. You think fossilized plant splooge or just plant splooge?
I would just call it plant splooge.
Plant splooge it is. I'm so glad we gave you the chance to name it yourself. Have you used the phrase plant splooge before in reference to what you study?
Yes.
Plant splooge. You effectively study plant splooge, ancient plant splooge. That's what it is, huh? That's what spores are.
Yeah, pollen and spores.
And then it floats through the air until it finds a receiver, and that's how plants reproduce. Or bees. Bees drop off the splooge.
Yeah, that's part of something you have to take into consideration in my line of work is modes of pollen transportation and how they get to where they're going. Because there are constraints. It's not a perfect science, but you can get a pretty good idea of what you're going for.
Yeah. So when all the bees were dying and everybody said it was a big mystery and it seems like it's turned out to just be, no, pesticides, that must have been pretty frustrating for you guys on the pollen studies world.
Well, actually, I don't really think about bees that much. I think bees are incredibly important and we should definitely be doing what we can to preserve them because if bees die, we die.
You are.
But
so beautifully nerdy, and I can't applaud it enough. Do you wear glasses?
No,
Can I ask,
really
do you wear glasses?
I wear contact lenses.
Oh. I'm thinking about getting LASIK.
Okay,
I'm thinking about getting LASIK, but then
I would love to get LASIK.
I feel like my whole image is built around my glasses, though. Everybody knows me for my glasses. I can't ever get LASIK.
And people will adjust.
Yeah, I guess they'll have to. What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Well, we're talking about how nerdy I am, and I would just like to say that I was a cheerleader for 13 years.
Whoa, bucking the expectation.
That's not something people typically associate with being nerdy.
That's awesome. That's a cool dichotomy.
Yeah, I was a cool kid. I just grew up to be nerdy.
You're a cool kid who became a nerd. That's awesome. That's awesome. Gives hope to all the nerdy boys out there, I'm sure. Cheerleaders. The cheerleaders are nerds deep down, too. And all the other nerdy people who are attracted to femme-identifying people on Earth. I should say that. I should say that as well. And I mean it. I should say that, and I do mean it.
Yeah, I mean, that's an accurate description.
We've got about 3 minutes left, my friend. I've enjoyed this call. I've learned a lot. I apologize if any of my jokes were inappropriate.
It's been great. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I used to, if I ever get through to Chris, what am I going to say? Is there anything else that falls into that category that I have forgotten?
I'm all ears.
Now, I will say that I worked for the National Park Service last year during their centennial celebration. Mm-hmm. And absolutely all of your listeners, go to your national parks, go to your state parks, support your parks, get out, go outside. It's really important. It's an amazing organization. Yes, 100%. Go parks.
If you don't use them, they're going to try to take them away. How bad do you want to get a post at Volcanoes National Park? How bad? Have you thought about that? You know about this place?
No, I'm not much. I mean, Volcanoes is cool because it's, Hawaii. But
what about all the, there's so much odd and unexpected plant life out there. And the volcanoes affected.
Yeah.
I went there on my honeymoon. I went to the Volcanoes National Park on my honeymoon. There's an active erupting volcano there. It's amazing. There's whole stretches of it where, like, my wife would go on jogs across, like, these long stretches of plantless black rock, and that was just where lava had solidified. The park ranger made fun of me. Some guy in the park ranger outfit, the little shorts and the hat. He made fun of me. Publicly during a talk. Talked about my masculinity. It's weird.
We said the park, they tend to be sassy. When I worked for the parks, I was serving as a paleontologist where I was. And people would bring in random bits of crap they'd found in their backyards while they were putting in a swimming pool or whatever. And, every single last one of them thinks that they've got a T-Rex skull or something along those lines. And somebody had brought something in, and they thought that it was a dinosaur leg bone of whatever, sorts. And I was on my way out of the visitor center, and they stopped me, the two girls that were working at this. They were like, "Oh, there's our summer paleontologist. Let's ask her." I took one look at it, and I was like, "That's fossilized wood, paleontologist, out." And I walked to my car.
Wow, you dropped the mic, paleontologist style. Dropped the mic.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
See, I had this guy, and I'm making it, people are going to get mad. I'm telling my own story, making it about me. Guy was telling a story about, like, Hawaiian culture, how, like, the natives used to blow this horn to see who the chief was. They said the chief was the alpha male. Then he points at me. He's like that guy, real alpha male. And I want, in front of my wife on my honeymoon, I wanted to be like, "Hey, Ranger Rick, fuck off." Like, you don't know who you're messing with. But I didn't want to embarrass my wife. Anyway, I'm so sorry I made it about me yet again. You're the best, and I really enjoy you.
I love to hear your stories. I love to listen to your stories. I listen to your podcast. I mean, Beautiful Anonymous is the highlight of my Tuesday.
That's so nice. And I loved your stories. You were so kind and informative and funny, and I thank you.
Well, thank you for being you. Good people keep being good people.
Caller, thank you so much. Thanks for all the information. Thanks for all the anecdotes. Thanks for all the kind words. I really enjoyed my talk with you. Thank you so much. Also, thanks to Jared O'Connell, Harry Nelson in the booth this week, hanging out, helping me keep track of all this stuff. Thanks to the Reverend John DeLore and Greta Cohn for building the show in the early days. Thank you to Shellshag for the music. Want to know about me, including my dates on the road? ChrisGeth.com. If you like the show, go to Apple Podcasts, rate, review, subscribe. It really does help so much more than you know. Thanks so much, and I'm glad you support this thing. Next time on Beautiful Anonymous, a guy who got hit really hard in the head tells us what that was like. Now, how are you?
I'm getting there. I'm doing all right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You're getting there. What's that mean?
Well, I've spent the better part of I think 5 months now in bed.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why? What's going on?
I had a head injury. I remember specifically June 19th.
June 19th, 2017.
Yeah.
Head injury. What happened? That's next time on Beautiful Anonymous.
Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santo Padre. Please welcome to the show, Norman Lear.
Who happened to make it also to Gilbert Gottfried and his podcast.
Ira Glass.
Very happy to be here.
This is Joyce Van Patten.
Hi, this is Frank Conniff.
Hi, I'm Dee Wallace.
Hi, this is Tom Bergeron.
Hey, everybody, this is Tommy James.
Hey, I'm Clint Howard.
Hi there, I'm Jackie the Joke Man Marley.
Hi, I'm Bobcat Goldthwait. I don't do that voice anymore. Well, I guess if you gave me money. You're listening to Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal Podcast.
What an introduction. It gave me shit chills. Damn.
Thank you, Johnny.
Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, available on iTunes, Earwolf, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts can be heard. New episodes every Monday, with bonus episodes on Stitcher Premium every Thursday. Go to gilbertpodcast.com for more info.
This has been an Earwolf production, executive produced by Scott Aukerman, Chris Bannon, and Colin Anderson. For more information and content, visit earwolf.com.